You work at the Glass House Laundry?
I was born there. Part-time washer at 7. Full-time from when I was 12.
What would the vote mean to you?
Ultimately, it's a political drama. Is it more challenging to make politics entertainment?
Yeah, well, I think it was all about getting the human story that you could engage with. And once Abi had come up with the character of Maud, an ordinary woman with no platform and no entitlement, who went on this journey towards activism, and we watched the impact it had on her life, I felt like we had the beating heart of the script. And also, these weren't women or men who sat around in rooms chatting, even though it was political. Their motto was deeds, not words, which meant that they were engaged in a lot of action, which was inherently actually cinematic. You know, watching them, these big demonstrations and the Derby and breaking the windows on Oxford Street and bombing of Lloyd George's house, it sort of lent itself to the cinematic form.
The story happens around some very well-known events in suffragette history, and then some lesser known, like whenever the women met in secret. How did you ensure to get the historical accuracy of what happened behind closed doors?
I mean, we were really lucky. We had an incredible kind of selection of female historians on this. We were very lucky because we have the great-granddaughter Helen Pankhurst, who's the great-granddaughter of Emmeline Pankhurst, who also advised us. We had the great-grandniece of Emily Wilding Davison, and then we have Helena Bonham Carter, who is the great-granddaughter of Prime Minister Asquith, who featured in the film. And at one point, in fact, there's a whole sequence set in the House of Parliament. We had all 3 women on set on the day, so we had a really incredible mix of historical research and also academic research and voices who were able to kind of create balance and checks on the film.
This is the first film that was allowed to shoot in Parliament. When it might have been easier just to use a set, what does this bring to the story by actually having it in the real location?
Well, it was very exciting to be in the real location because that was where history happened and we were recreating it. And there we were, this predominantly female cast and crew, staging this riot, anti-government riot, in the very place that it had happened. And also that architecture isn't easy to replicate, actually. And the wallpaper for the committee rooms and the corridors, it's all so distinctive. There's nothing better than being in the real place.
I was surprised by how much the suffragettes, to the extent they put themselves at risk, things that myself and a lot of others didn't actually learn in history class. Did you learn anything that really surprised you?
Yeah, I learned nothing about them at school. They weren't even mentioned. And it was only later that I started to read about them, and I realised that the version I knew of them was the Mary Poppins version, Mrs. Banks, and that it's sort of a bit of objects of ridicule. And it was incredible to read those accounts. We went into the Museum of London archives and the women's libraries and read these unpublished diaries and memoirs and letters of women who had risked so much, who had been to prison, were force-fed after hunger striking, the police brutality they faced, and at this great personal cost, often losing their jobs and their homes and their families. And it was really fascinating to me to explore what drove these women to go that far and endure so much.
Education and being informed comes out as a big theme throughout the film. Why is it important to be informed about the world around us?
Knowledge is power. One of the things that was really interesting about working on the character of Maud, and actually was in one of the earlier drafts, is I made her illiterate. She couldn't read. And actually that would have been a big issue for a lot of working class women, because a number of them would have probably gone to school till they were 9 and then part-time till they were 12. And certainly the generation older than Maud would have experienced that. But actually I realised that what was interesting about so many of the women is that their involvement with the movement was also part of their education. A number of them, actually learnt to read because they got to know women who could read and write, and then that led them to read the memoirs, read the political statements, be involved, start to find a voice. And so that's why I didn't make her in this, because I couldn't accelerate that within the 18 months. But it's really important you're informed. I mean, it's really important you see yourself outside of just your own insular world and recognise you're part of a global community. And I think this is one story of injustice, and I think there are so many stories still to be told. And I hope this film advocates for those stories and those films being made.
Well, you say there about focusing on a working class character, how would the story have changed through the eyes of a middle class or upper class lady?
I think what was amazing about the movement is it brought the classes together, and the actual hierarchy, they were middle upper class. I think if we'd focused on a middle class character, we probably would have focused on women who were also dealing with huge amount of oppression, were also dealing with, you know, having to face huge sacrifices. I think what was intrigued me about the working class women was that these women were not only dealing with the kind of economic imprisonment of often having several children who they were trying to raise at the same time as earning money, but they were also directly affected in a way that maybe the middle and upper class women weren't, because when they were incarcerated, they would be incarcerated often up to a month, 2 months at a time. So when they came back, they lost their jobs. So it had a really direct effect on them.
I know that it was set 100 years ago, and of course I haven't encountered a lot of the struggles those girls did, but they are the same sort of age group that I am, so I did feel a sort of relevance with them there.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I think what you're always trying to do is make something that, certainly if you do a period drama, you don't want to ever feel like you're kind of deifying it or making it something that you have to observe from the outside. And, you know, Sarah is very good because she's both muscular and poetic, and I think she's really good at making this quite a visceral experience. I hope it's quite a visceral experience so you feel it. Yeah. But also, yeah, I think in an age, the digital age where we are, you know, social media has been, the good thing about social media is it's been brilliant at engaging us globally with stories of injustice, and I think, you know, it's been nurturing activism in the next generation. I hope it chimes, because I think, you know, there are those modern day suffragettes who I find very inspiring today, and I hope Maud is sort of a model for that as well.
When women attack the home of a government minister, we have reached a state of anarchy we can no longer ignore. This has to stop. The press can only be tamed so long. They grow more and more interested in these damned women, while we in government must try to quash every news story.
You touch on the media during that time quite a bit in the film, and how they see women as troublemakers. What part does the media play in campaigning now, and how has that developed since?
Suffragette was, you know, I really fought against that title at first, because actually, but what's interesting is it is actually a title that was reappropriated from the tabloid newspapers at the time and owned, which I really love now. And actually, you know, one of the producers actually said, you know, no, we need to put that title at the forefront because it's sort of a statement of intent, really. I think we're all in an age where, you know, we recognise how incredibly important the media is. There is some really intelligent media. We're also in this age of digital age where we have social activism and social engagement, and people are able to blog and comment and tweet on films, and it's all part of the discourse. And I think, you know, you want a film like this to generate conversation, and I think it certainly is. And in many ways, that's probably more important than the film itself. So the media is incredibly important. And the other thing is that, you know, in a time where I think many of us, you know, I had one great comment where a man said to me, I don't see the point of this film, we've already got equality, haven't we? I mean, women have got equality. And I thought, well, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we have to stay engaged with that some people feel like that, but also I think it makes you engage with the fact that we know we're in an industry where there are, the London Film Festival is a fantastic advocate for strong women and films led by strong women. And this year they have 111 feature films and shorts led by women, which is fantastic. And it's 46 feature films, but that still represents under 20% of the films led by women. And so it's just statistics, really. It's a bit like saying, are you a feminist? You know, of course I'm a feminist. Feminism just means equality. It's really just, that's all it is. And so, you know, and the media is a very important part of conveying that.
There's a line in the film about respecting the law, to which the reply is, make the law respectable. Why is it important that we, say, through social media or the likes, we challenge our surroundings?
I think it's really important. I mean, I think particularly, you know, one of the messages in the film, and I hope, you know, you take away from it, is that we're in an age of real ambivalence about the power of the law and government, certainly in the UK. And I think what we were all trying to say when we worked on the film, one of the things that was very humbling was realising how hard fought the right for women to vote was. And, you know, in an age where, you know, we have a dwindling population who are actually voting and a dwindling female young population that are voting, I suppose it's a call to arms to say, don't give up. You know, there's a reason why we got our vote, because if you get your vote, then you can change policy, and if you change policy, you can change law. And so I guess that's sort of the message that you hope will carry through.
not want to be lawbreakers. We want to be lawmakers.